Don't miss these life-changing truths from Pastor Adam Burton's latest sermon at Central Baptist Church.
This isn't rare anymore. It's the default. Move in together first. See how it goes. Why pay rent for two places when you don't have to? Everyone around you is going to tell you that's smart. It's practical. It's the wise way to do it. And it looks good. The same way the Jordan Valley looked good to Lot. Shared expenses, shared groceries. You get to test things out before you commit forever. It might even work. Most of us have one of those too good to be true moments. Maybe it was when you got that big job offer, when the number on the page was bigger than you expected, and we started dreaming about all of the things that we can do with the extra cash. Or maybe it was a house. We remember the day that you found it. It has everything that a person could want. It's on the right street with the big yard. You're standing in the living room. You could already see your life there, picturing where you're going to place the Christmas tree, thinking about all of the memories you'll make. It felt like it had been set aside just for you. And somewhere in the middle of all of that clarity, we stopped asking questions. We didn't run the numbers on what the mortgage would actually do to our margin every month. We didn't ask what saying yes to the job would take away from us, all of the late nights and the weekends away from our family. Everything looked so right that asking almost felt ungrateful, like you'd be questioning a gift. You see, when something looks like everything we want, our desire has a way of doing our thinking for us. We call it wisdom or God opening a door, and sometimes it is. But sometimes what we're really doing is talking ourselves into something that we've already decided before we bring God into the equation. Our passage this morning is Genesis 13. It's a chapter about two men who looked at the same situation and saw completely different things. Abram's nephew Lot looked with his eyes and he chose what he could see. But Abram waited. And God showed him something that his eyes could have never found on their own. We're going to spend our time this morning in that contrast because most of us are better at Lot's kind of looking than we'd like to admit. But God shows up after Lot walks away. The main idea of today's sermon is to stop choosing by what you can see and let God open your eyes to what He has promised. We're going to look at how that happens when we lift our own eyes, and then what happens when God lifts them for us. First, when we lift our own eyes. Now let's start here with verses 1 through 4. So Abram went up from Egypt, he and his wife and all that he had, and Lot with him, into the Negeb. Now Abram was very rich in livestock, in silver and in gold. And he journeyed on from the Negeb as far as Bethel to the place where his tent had been at the beginning, between Bethel and Ai, to the place where he had made an altar at the first. And there Abram called upon the name of the Lord. So Abram comes back from Egypt, and the first thing that he does is go back to the altar. It's the exact place where he stood before everything in Egypt happened. Now look at verses 5 through 7. And Lot, who went with him, also had flocks and herds and tents, so that the land could not support both of them dwelling together, for their possessions were so great that they could not dwell together. And there was strife between the herdsmen of Abram's livestock and the herdsmen of Lot's livestock. At that time, the Canaanites and Perizzites were dwelling in the land. Both men have become so wealthy that the land can't hold them. The Hebrew word for wealthy here literally means heavy. It's the same word that Moses used for famine back in chapter 12. The thing that nearly broke Abram with too little is now testing him with too much. You know, money has a way of doing that. Think about siblings who got along their whole lives. They survived a hard childhood together, and they still look forward to the family gatherings. But then a parent dies, and 6 months later, they're not speaking to each other because someone thought that the house should go one way and someone else thought it should go another. They couldn't agree how to split the inheritance, so now they've written off the people they love. That's what abundance can do. It has a way of breaking something that took a lifetime to build. Or think about the people who win the lottery. You think that more money solves problems, but most of the time it just multiplies them. Family members and friends they hadn't heard from in years suddenly come out of the woodwork. Many of them are broke again within 5 years because it tore apart everything that used to hold their life together. The Canaanites and the Perizzites are watching all of this, and Abram knows it. Look at verses 8 and 9. Then Abram said to Lot, "Let there be no strife between you and me, and between your herdsmen and my herdsmen, for we are kinsmen. Is not the whole land before you? Separate yourself from me. If you take the left hand, then I will go to the right. Or if you take the right hand, then I will go to the left." So Abram goes to Lot first. Now he had every right to choose. He was the elder. He was the one that God actually made the promise to. The land was his to claim before Lot ever got a say. Yet he hands it over anyway. Take whatever you want, he says. I'll take what's left. Now Abram is being generous, but it's more than generosity here. It's surrender. Abram is letting go the very thing that God promised him on the chance that Lot might take all of it and leave him with nothing. Now he can do that because he's not actually choosing between plots of land. What he's choosing is whether to trust a promise he can't see yet. But there's something bigger than Abram's character happening here. See, a man gives up what's rightfully his. He lets someone else take the better portion, trusting his father to provide for him anyway. That's not just Abram's story. That's the story that his whole life keeps pointing toward a son who gave up everything that was rightfully his so that we could have what we didn't deserve, trusting his father completely. Look here at verses 10 and 11. And Lot lifted his eyes, and he saw that the Jordan Valley was well watered everywhere, like the garden of the Lord, like the land of Egypt, in the direction of Zoar. This was before the Lord destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah. So Lot chose for himself all the Jordan Valley, and Lot journeyed east. Thus they separated from each other. So Lot lifted his eyes and saw. Now we've heard that phrase before. Eve saw that the fruit was good and took it. The sons of God saw the daughters of men and took them. Now Lot sees the Jordan Valley and takes it. He saw water everywhere. He saw something that looked like the garden of the Lord, and it looked like Egypt. Now the garden is what we lost. Egypt is what nearly destroyed Abram. And both of them somehow look good to Lot from where he's standing. And he takes all of the valley. That's what unchecked desire does. It doesn't hold anything back. It doesn't say, well, I'll take some and leave room for caution. When something looks like everything you want, you don't take a little of it. You take all of it. This isn't rare anymore. It's the default. Move in together first. See how it goes. Why pay rent for two places when you don't have to? Everyone around you is going to tell you that's smart. It's practical. It's the wise way to do it. And it looks good. The same way the Jordan Valley looked good to Lot. Shared expenses, shared groceries. You get to test things out before you commit forever. It might even work. The valley was really as green as it looked. But remember what we saw last week. Abram chose the wise thing once. He went down to Egypt and did what made sense to keep himself safe. That decision cost him more than he was willing to pay. That's why he's back at the altar. He's learned what it costs to trust what looks wise instead of what God promised. Lot hasn't learned that yet, but he's about to. Look at verse 12. Abram settled in the land of Canaan, while Lot settled among the cities of the valley and moved his tent as far as Sodom. So Abram stays there in Canaan, but Lot moves towards Sodom. Now, he doesn't move into the city right away. He settles near it where he's close enough that he can see it. Right? He can get there easily whenever he's ready to go. And that's how he usually goes. Nobody wakes up one morning and decides that it's time to move into Sodom. You just get a little closer. You tell yourself, well, I'm not all the way there yet. And every step in Genesis means something. Adam and Eve were expelled to the east of Eden. Cain went east of his family. At Babel, they were scattered east. Now Lot is heading east. The direction itself is a warning that the narrator keeps using. Now look at verse 13. Now the men of Sodom were wicked, great sinners against the Lord. So Lot could see Sodom from where he stood. He knew exactly what it was. Yet he pitched his tent there anyway. I don't know what was going through Lot's mind when he pitched his tent. Maybe he told himself, well, I'm still safe. He wasn't actually in Sodom. He was just near it. But whatever questions he was asking himself, there was one that he didn't ask. And it's the one that mattered. What is this going to cost me? So Lot's gone now. He's moved east towards Sodom with the valley spread out before him or behind him. And Abram is left with whatever's left. The land that nobody wanted. Look at the first part of verse 14. The Lord said to Abram, after Lot separated from him, lift up your eyes and look from the place where you are, northward and southward and eastward and westward. After Lot had separated from him, that's when God speaks. Not before or while Abram was still deciding on what to do, but after. Once Lot is already gone and the choice couldn't be unmade. That brings us to our second point. When God lifts our eyes. Now let's look at the second part of verse 14. Lift up your eyes and look from the place where you are, northward and southward, and eastward and westward. So lift up your eyes and look. Now there's a word tucked into that command in the original language that our English Bibles don't show us. It's a particle, it's a na, and it's translated please. But it's different than being polite. Right? It's saying, please lift your eyes and look. Now God says this word to a human being only 4 times in the Old Testament. The land that Abram is looking still belongs to someone else, and it's as far as anyone could see. The Canaanites are living on it right now. Nothing about this in this view looks like a promise to him. And God doesn't tell him to take it. He just asks him to look at it. Verse 15 is the land promise. For all the land that you see, I will give to you and your offspring forever. Forever. Lot picked the best looking land in the whole valley. And within a few years, it would be ash. God gives Abram everything his eyes can see, and he gives it forever. Verse 16 is the offspring promise. I will make your offspring as the dust of the earth, so that If one can count the dust of the earth, your offspring can be counted. Now, Abram has no children. Right? His wife can't have any. And God tells him that his offspring will be too many to count. There's no plan here that Abram could pull off himself. That's not a problem for the promise. That's the promise. In verse 17 is the walking command. Arise, walk through the length and the breadth of the land, for I will give it to you. Arise, walk it, the length and breadth, every single direction. Land that he doesn't own yet, promised to a son that he doesn't have yet. When I was a teenager, my parents had our house built, contracted to build it, and I remember we would walk through it when it was just being framed up. You had the studs and the concrete. There weren't any walls up yet. We walked through it anyway. We pointed at the empty space. You see, oh, there's the kitchen over there, and then my room's going to be over there. We claimed it with our feet before there was anything else really to claim. That's what God is asking Abram to do. He's asking him to walk the land that isn't his yet, like it already is his. William Borden, his family, made their fortune in the Colorado silver mining back in the 1800s. By the time he was born, that money was old. It's the kind of wealth that a family doesn't lose. And he had everything going for him on top of it. He was athletic, the kind of natural leader that people followed him without asking them to. At Yale, he was elected president of the Phi Beta Kappa. He rode crew. He captained his own sailing yacht. He could have walked into any room in the country and been welcomed. Yet he spent a lot of his time on his knees at a homeless mission in New Haven, Connecticut, that he funded with his own money. There's an account of a British person who's visiting America, and they were asked what most impressed them about the country. And in speaking about Borden, he said, it was watching a young millionaire kneel with his arm around a man that nobody else wanted to sit next to. When he graduated, the job offers were the kind that people spend a lifetime trying to get, yet he turned them down. He gave most of his fortune away. He decided to go to China instead, where he wanted to reach a people group that nobody was trying to reach. Sadly, he never got there. He stopped in Egypt to learn the language first. And there he contracted meningitis, and he died within a month. At 25 years old, he never set foot in the place that he gave up everything for. Now, for many people, that looks like a waste. The wise path was right there. He walked away from it anyway, toward a promise that he never lived to see fulfilled. Abram didn't either, not in his lifetime. The land, the children, all of it came generations after he was gone. Neither of them got to see it, and neither of them needed to. The promise was never resting on whether they lived long enough to watch it happen. It's resting on God keeping his word. The word didn't stop with Abram. It's the same word that sent Jesus, because every promise that God made got paid in full through him, whether Abram saw it in his lifetime or not. He just kept building altars. Look what Abram does in verse 18. So Abram moved his tent and came and settled by the oaks of Mamre, which are at Hebron. And there he built an altar to the Lord. So Abram moves his tent. And the first thing he does again is build an altar. This isn't the first time. He built one back in chapter 12 before any of this happened. He built one back at Bethel, the one that he returned to at the start of this chapter. Now here's a third. Instead of marking his territory, Abram marks his worship. He built an altar so that he wouldn't have to find his own way back to the promise every time. And we have our own altars. We have prayer, where we bring God our wanting, before it starts making the decisions for us. We have Scripture where He keeps saying what He's already promised, louder than whatever's telling us that something else looks better. He gives us people who love us enough to ask the questions that we have stopped asking ourselves. The Lord's Supper, where we remember what was already paid for us so that we stop reaching for things that were never ours to take. The purpose of these spiritual disciplines isn't to make us more disciplined. It's how God keeps lifting our eyes. And sadly, we resist it. We skip prayer because we don't actually want to be redirected. We close the Bible because it doesn't want to say what we want to hear right now. We stay home because church asks us something of us that we're not ready to give. But God doesn't stop. Maybe He sends a friend who says the one thing that you need to hear, or a song catches you off guard in the car. Or He just waits, however long it takes for you to come back to the altar. That promise on a hillside, it was never really about the land. If we look to Hebrews 11, 9, and 10, by faith, He went to live in the land of promise, as in a foreign land, living in tents with Isaac and Jacob, heirs with him of the same promise. For he was looking forward to the city that has foundations, whose designer and builder is God. Abram was looking for a city that he'd never seen. We're not. We know the city's name. I'll invite our worship team to come at this time. Lot's drift didn't happen all at once. Nobody wakes up and decides to move next to Sodom. It happens one reasonable step at a time, and every step looks fine until you're standing somewhere you're never meant to be. You might be a few steps into that walk right now. Not all the way to Sodom. You never go that far. But you're looking at something, and what you're looking at looks good. You stopped asking what it's going to cost you. What decision do you need to make today? All of us have one. If you've never trusted in Christ, that's it. Nothing else matters until that's settled. And it's simple. You just have to follow the ABCs, as we talked about in VBS. Admit that you're a sinner who needs Him. Believe in the good news that Jesus lived the life you couldn't live and died the death you deserved and rose again. And confess Him as Lord and follow Him. That's it. That's all you need to do. If you already belong to Him, you still have a Jordan plain somewhere. Is there something that you're holding on to so tight you haven't asked God what it's costing you? Oh, choose the altar, because God is patient. Oh, and He will give you everything you need the moment that you're willing to trust His timing instead of your eyes. Stop choosing by what you can see and let God open your eyes to what He has promised. I'm Pastor Adam Burton from Central Baptist Church. I want to personally thank you for watching our sermon today. It means so much to us that you've taken time to connect with God's Word through our ministry. If this message encouraged you, I invite you to explore more about our church at cbcmaysville.com. You'll find resources, upcoming events, and ways to get involved. And don't forget to follow us on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram for more content like this. We'd love to stay connected with you and to continue to grow together in faith. Thanks again for watching. God bless you, and I hope to see you soon, either online or in person.